Time now.
It's time.
Time now.
Here we go.
For Blues America. It's Blues America time. Blues America time.
The blues is a feeling. The blues is life. The blues is stories and legend. The blues is the heart and soul of America. It is our history and national standard. Everything started from the blues. It's time now for Blues America. Blues America, broadcasting coast to coast. Let's talk about the blues, shall we?
Yes, let's talk about the blues. This is your source for blues talk. A little blues show from Arizona, Blues America. I'm in charge of this mess, your humble host, your blues anchor, the guy behind the blues, Drew Verbis. Here's what you need to know. Blues America broadcasts weekly on the radio, spreading blues out of the Sonoran Desert from Tucson to Sedona and coast to coast on syndicated stations and worldwide on our streaming podcast at PRX, iTunes, and online now at bluesamerica.com. The website also features blues junk, like the photo of the week, the blues news, and detailed program information. Contact the show at bluesamerica@gmail.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Blues America is now broadcasting on the Kansas City Online Radio Network and the MDO Radio Network. Check out our website for times and dates. Today on Blues America, master blues drummer, guitarist, singer, songwriter from North Mississippi, Cedric Burnside. You're listening to Blues America. I'm that guy, Drew Verbis.
Blues America is recorded and produced at the Chico Chisholm Memorial Studio.
Cedric Burnside is a critically acclaimed master drummer, guitarist, singer-songwriter from North Mississippi. He's been drumming professionally since the age of 13. He's the son of blues drummer Calvin Jackson and the grandson of the great blues legend R.L. Burnside. He was the primary drummer for R.L. Burnside at the peak of his career, touring internationally, even with the Beastie Boys, and recording on The Wizard, Come On In, A Bothered Mind, and the Grammy-nominated album Burnside on Burnside. Since the passing of his famous grandfather in 2005, Cedric has been busy continuing the Burnside legacy with 3 solo albums and 4 collaborations, in addition to being featured as a guest on several high-profile recordings. He's won 4 Blues Awards for Best Drummer. Welcome, Cedric Burnside, to Blues America.
Blues America is endorsed by the Phoenix Blues Society. Learn how to become a member at phoenixblues.org. Blues America. Now that's some home cooking.
Cedric, my old friend, we've known each other since our teens, and it's so good to see you. I'm really proud of all the great things you've been doing. Tell everybody how long you've been drumming.
Wow, man. It sounds funny, but I've been playing drums for over 20 years. About 23 years, actually.
Cedric, tell us about your musical family. Pretty much everybody does something musical in your family, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, not everybody, but you know, most all my uncles, my big dad and big mama had about 13 kids, and you know, they had 7 boys and 5 out of the 7 boys play, a little guitar, a little bass. So I got a very musical family. Yeah. My big daddy, R.L. Burnside, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first time you started to play with R.L.?
I do. Back in the day, my big daddy and, my dad and uncles, my big daddy used to have a little house party just about every weekend, and, all the fans, fans and neighbors would come, from just all over the world just to hear him play on his front porch. And, I always watched him and, wanted to get on the drums, and I just never had the courage, So one day, I guess I was about 6, 7 years old, just watching them play the drums, and when they take a little break and go out and drink the little moonshine or whatever, I just built up the courage to jump up there, and it didn't really matter if I could play them good or not, just breaking the ice was getting up there on the drums, and I did it, and people was like, look at that little young man on the drums, he gonna be good one day, and that right there encouraged me, and I stayed on it, and around about 10 years old, I was playing in the juke joint.
I was born with the blues, and I feel she was born the same. I was born with the blues, and I feel she was born the same.
So how exactly did you learn the drums? Are you all self-taught 100%, or did your dad teach you or have some influence with you?
Well, my dad, Calvin Jackson, was a drummer. He played drums with my big daddy first, and like I said, I always watched him during the house parties, and drums was something I always wanted to, play, and actually my favorite instrument in the world. And so I just kind of looked and learned, just watched and tried to imitate, and it paid off. Nobody never really sat me down and said, hey, Cedric, do it like this, or, these are your rudiments. I don't read any music. I just, try to play what I hear. So far, it's been working for me.
I said we were gonna be because I knew she was the same. I said we was gonna be because I knew she was the same. Yeah, she a sweet little girl, and I just got to be her man. Go ahead, play it back.
So, when R.L. Burnside got really huge in the 90s, you were on all those tours and all those recordings, and you weren't even old enough to really get in the bars at that time. He's doing all these world tours. What was that like?
Well, I have to say it was awesome being able to go in a club, as a teenager. Me growing up, in a juke joint, I was also too young really to be in a juke joint, but, the bass player and the drummer, sometimes they have a tendency not to show up, and when that happened, me and my uncle Gary Burnside, he's about 2 years older than me. People think we're brothers, but he my youngest uncle. He was playing bass at the same, at that time when I started playing drums. So I was about 10, he was about 12, and we kind of had to be the house band when the bass player or the drummer didn't show up. And I have to say, just leaving Mississippi for the first time, I was 13 years old when I did my first, real tour with my granddad. And it was scary, it was real scary because I'd never been anywhere before. Just used to Mississippi, not used to getting out the state. And, once I started going to these places, I did my first show and the people liked it. I didn't have any more butterflies or anything like that. I did have to have a little wristband every time I go in the club for I wouldn't drink. Yep. And so, of course, I wasn't drinking anyway, but I had to have it. It was pretty cool, though, being the teenager that walks up in the club all, big and bad.
RL really took that whole North Mississippi sound and the Fred McDowell sound. He really kind of took it to a different level. So did Junior as well, of course. And boy, he was really huge. And you would go to towns, and all of a sudden, it'd be a sea of white faces. College kids. What was happening?
I have to say, round about the late 90s, that's when my Big Daddy started, really getting known for the Hill Country Blues. It was a long time waiting. But I have to say it was cool, man. It was always cool to me to see new faces and new places as well, and just to see the energy from the people that really loved and dug this Hill Country Blues.
But did that surprise you?
It was a beautiful thing.
To have that huge college audience.
It was very surprising, and especially to have a young crowd. Because my Big Daddy, he started out playing for an older crowd, and as he got known more and more younger crowds started to come, and he did the thing with John Spencer Blues Explosion, late 90s, early 2000, and that album was a really good album for him, and that brought him a little bit more of the younger crowd. So I have to say it made me feel real good, and I know it made my granddad feel a whole lot better than just playing for one crowd, and that's the older crowd.
Now, you mentioned some of the RL crossovers, and we're going to get into that in a second. But before we do that, for some people who might not understand, how do you think the sound in the North Mississippi Hill style differs from the Delta and the Southern Mississippi?
To answer that question, all I can say is different for sure. It's just got that hypnotic beat, that pounding beat that never stops. Hill Country Blues has its own timing. It's a timing unlike any other timing in any other blues. Delta blues is sort of similar but different. It's the only blues that I would say that's kind of similar to Hill Country. But even Delta blues is different from Hill Country. So it just have that hypnotic, beat, and people love it, and it's a very rare blues, and I'm just glad to keep it going,
Absolutely. So you mentioned John Spencer, and when RL was alive, and you were his main drummer, and it was, in fact, the trio of you and Kenny Brown.
Kenny Brown.
Yeah, Kenny Brown. You guys were traveling all over and pretty famous, really, on the Epitaph record, the Fat Possum record label. And then some crossovers started to happen with the John Spencer's Blues Explosion. And then, of course, there was like that remix album that was pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the, well, of course, the diehard blues fans, you can't please them no matter what you do. But tell me some, tell me about some of the positives and some of the negatives that came from that project, because it was a little bit controversial, and yet you still watch a movie today and hear music from that album.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, my Big Daddy, at first, he didn't think it was gonna, do too good. He was kind of opposed to it. He was kind of skeptical of doing it. And, I was sitting there watching the whole time and just being witness of all this. To be honest, I didn't think it would do too good myself, And so Fat Possum, Matt and Bruce was like, we want to try something different, RL. I think it'll, be a good thing to kind of, spread your wings and do something different, something crazy, And so, we recorded the album, and I forget the guys that did all the remixing out in California, but they did a really good mix on the album. And some blues critics was like, my Big Daddy need to stick to blues and and not, go to anything else because he's strictly a blues man. But I have to say, the younger crowd